Hey guys, welcome to the Tyrant Network podcast. I am your host, Corey Frederick, and I'm off the mat today with Guy Sako. Guy, welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
As always, I just like to give a quick little rundown. This is a very short, abbreviated bio of Guy, but he is currently the founder and CEO of Defense Soap, and that's the company that he's built since he's been a retired police officer, where he was a Cleveland police officer for 25 years, retired back in 2015. He is a wrestler and he is a coach and he's an entrepreneur as well, and that's why we wanted to have him on the show. You started wrestling at 10 years old. I don't know the whole journey, but I know that you ended up at Cleveland State University. You ended up being an NCAA qualifier. Upon graduation, you stayed at Cleveland State. You coached for about 3 years. And then for whatever reason, you decided to leave coaching, at least at the college level. You came back and you started coaching at West Shore Wrestling Club, where you've been for over 30 years and you're still there today. And then you became a Cleveland police officer. And a highlight that, and I know you're a humble guy, but one of the highlights are you are a Hall of Fame member in the Ohio chapter of National Wrestling, where you got the Lifetime Service to a Wrestling Award. So congratulations with that.
Thank you.
There's a ton of things we can talk about really before we get into defense. So, Guy, tell me how or why you decided to become a police officer.
Oh, it was just a funny story. One wrestling referee's name was Donnie Ferris. He refed us. He refed me when I was little, and he refed me all the way through college. He was a Cleveland police homicide detective, and the guy kind of took me under his wing. I mentioned I wanted to be a policeman one day, and he kind of showed me how to take the civil service test and everything. And I got on the job when I was young. I took the test when I was 21 years old. I got on when I was 23, and I was retired at 48. But I had Don Ferris's badge number. Interesting story about Don is he's the referee who died during the Walsh Jesuit St. Ed's match. He died of a heart attack right on the mat there. He loved wrestling, and it was kind of cool way for him to go. Sad, obviously, but if you knew him, that was a cool way for him to go. And a big inspiration in my police career.
So, like growing up though, or in college, did you always want to be a police officer, or when did you decide that you wanted to be an officer?
Yeah, in college, I went to school for social services, it was called at the time. Had nothing to do with police work, but that's what they stuck policemen in college.
So, but why did you? So, if you were planning on being a police officer, but then you coached for 3 years, so was there a reason why you decided to stay and coach for 3 years, or did you think
I
maybe you
did
didn't?
both.
Oh, you
I
were
did
doing
both.
both. Okay.
Yeah, I was coaching at Cleveland State, and it was hard, because we swung shifts back then. So you went from day shift to afternoon shift to midnights. I was a young guy, so I never got to work day shift. I worked 1 month at day shift in 25 years, to be honest with you. And then I always gravitated to midnight shift because I could coach. So I coached both. I did both.
Yeah. Did you ever think about being a coach full time as a career, or this wasn't in the cards?
No, I was a policeman. I didn't really identify. Some policemen really identify heavy as a policeman. I always identified as a wrestler, but my career where I made money was, in the police department. But then I had a son, Gus, and I wanted to coach him. There comes a time too when if you're not in that college room every single day, you're not coaching Division I guys. They're going to beat the living hell out of you. And if you're the grad assistant, they're not going to listen to the guy that they're beating up. So it's kind of natural time to move out of there. And when that time came, then I had my son and I started coaching my son.
So, were you on the street, or tell us a little bit about your career path when you were
Yeah,
a police officer?
I honestly spent 25 years in a zone car. Zone car is like the guy that answers the radio assignments. I did that for 25 years. I did that on midnight shift so I could coach. So I would coach, go to work, go to bed, get up, do it again. That's what I did. But I also started defense in 05. So I ran defense for 10
Oh,
years while I was a policeman. I retired in 2015. So there is a 10-year period where I would go to practice at 6 o'clock, get out of practice at 6, be at work at 10, work from 10 till 6 in the morning, get up at 11, go to defense, run defense till practice. And I did that for a number of years. 20-hour days for years.
so before we jump completely over to defense soap, any crazy stories or anything? I mean, I know you probably have tons of them, but is there anything that really sticks out that you could share with the listeners that would give us a good laugh or scare about when you were an officer?
I've been shot at 4 times. I worked area called 93rd and Kinsman in the Cleveland southeast side. I mean, multiple homicide arrests, multiple rape, murder. I mean, rape, robbery, you name it, it happened there. It was a crazy place. Arrested brothers for killing their brother over the last chicken bone. It's crazy the things that you see when you work in those neighborhoods. But I spent a lot of time there, and I understand the neighborhood well, that life well. But I like selling soap much better.
Much safer, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't aware that it was a 10-year overlap of your career as a police officer and then starting Defense Soap. So I'm somewhat familiar with the story, but probably many of our listeners aren't. But can you kind of give us the history of how or why Defense Soap was started?
Well, I coach the West Shore Wrestling Club. It's a pretty storied program, actually. I'm only the fourth coach of that club in 57 years. Howard Ferguson started it, who went on to start St. Edward's Wrestling. And over the years, I'm the fourth coach there. The one year, my entire team had ringworm, 100 kids. Every single kid had ringworm. I was losing my mind. And I'm like every other wrestler, I'm going to go get the strongest and harshest treatment, right? So we're all using like Dial, triple antibacterial soap, scrubbing, trying to get rid of ringworm. And we didn't realize that by doing that, we were actually creating a better environment for ringworm to grow. When you kill all the bacteria in your skin, there's nothing to kill fungus, ringworm grows. So I did some research. And I'm like, why didn't somebody just create a soap for these kids that they could get rid of ringworm? I know you could do it because in college we use like Selsun Blue as a body wash. And that's kind of like the premise of Defense Soap. But, obviously shampoo is limited to what it could really do for it as a shampoo. It's not a soap, but I knew you could put an antifungal ingredient into a cleansing product. So I hired this lady. It was a New England Moon Company. This is back in 2005. And I had her put some ingredients in this bar of soap that I wanted to get rid of ringworm, and she made me the first bars of Defense Soap. I called like Procter and Gamble, all those people. They just like laugh at you can't even get to anybody, right? You don't get past the front desk in those places. So I ended up going online and doing Google searches, and I kept coming across these hippie type soaps, right? I'm like a pretty conservative policeman, and I'm talking to these dope smoking hippie type people, and it was kind of weird how I had to like navigate this whole thing, but it turned out. I saw value in what they were doing, and they helped me, and we got the right ingredients. We created bar soap. And then I found a New England Moon, she was not like a hippie dope smoking type person, but she made a good soap, and she took the ingredients I got from those hippies and created the first bar of soap. The crazy part was it was like a waxy, chunky bar, and if you looked at it, you saw like swirls and different colors and everything in it. And I'm like, this isn't looking very consistent. How do I know how much medicine or active ingredient is in this bar? So I needed something better than that. So then I moved from her to like like one of the largest soap companies in the country. They kind of laughed at me a little bit, but then they helped me along. I become one of their top 10 customers over time.
But you had no history or knowledge of this. You just started researching it out of the blue and trying to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, everything was done on Google. And it was crazy because I'm here. I am, I didn't graduate from Cleveland State. I got hired in the police department before I actually graduated. So I'm an uneducated Polish policeman reading medical papers on ingredients and ringworm. And I really dove hard into that. And one of the doctors in the emergency room where you take prisoners to the emergency room was a wrestler. His name was Oscar Nicholson. And he loved wrestling. We always talked wrestling, and I would rewrite those medical papers for wrestlers to understand, and he would read them for me. So he unofficially became my medical advisor, and so here's two wrestlers. One's a OR doctor, another one's a policeman, and formulating this whole company. It was kind of cool.
But in 2005, though, you were the first guy out of the gate. You had no competition. Nobody else had done this at that time, right?
No one made one. We still don't really have any competition, to be honest with you. There's people knock us off, and they'll copy my formula and stuff, and they try, but what they don't have is what we have here. I wrestle collegiately, Gus wrestled collegiately, Charlie wrestled collegiately. we have crazy, and we're still active coaches, and we know what wrestlers need. We don't make things that wrestlers don't need. So it makes it's really easy fit for us.
You said you didn't finish college. How much time did you have left to get that degree?
The crazy part is all I had left was something called interventions. And I needed to work someplace in my field. I was already a Cleveland policeman, and they didn't have anybody. Cleveland State University did not have anybody in the Cleveland Police Department that could help me with my interventions. So they wanted me to like donate 20 hours a week to a homeless shelter or something. But I'm working full time as a policeman on swing shift. It didn't work. So all I needed was my interventions. I would have graduated. But I believe in college education, but I like thumbing my nose at the system too. I did it without it.
So do you own 100% of Defense Soap, or do you have a partner like that doctor or somebody?
No, I own 100%.
Okay.
He did it because he loved wrestling.
So when you
talk wrestling stories with him afterwards. So
yeah, really. So when you decided to retire as a police officer, and I guess more so, like right before I started this podcast, I was talking to my daughter, Mackenzie, who works for our company, but she was like, ask him, how he got the confidence to leave. And I said, well, no, he was going to retire anyway. But were you planning on retiring at 25 years, or did the Defense Soap just get so big you had to make a decision whether you were going to be a police officer or grow defense?
I was going to leave at 25 years. Police departments, big city departments kind of burn guys out. If you care and you go to work and you try to do a good job and you just get dumped on by the city time and time again, they kind of burn you out. By the time you do 25 years in his own car, you don't want to see another person. You don't want to see the story that broke me. I'll tell you a quick police story. I was sitting in the report room writing a report, and they walked this old guy through in handcuffs, and they're like, I'm like, what's he in here for or whatever? Like, he raped his granddaughter. I said, oh, that's pretty bad. He goes, yeah, but it's also his daughter, because he raped her mother, which was his daughter, and impregnated her with this kid, went to prison, came back and raped this one. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not trying to make sense of this anymore. This is, you don't really help anybody. You just hear these stories over and over again. But I remember the system failed this girl, the mother failed this girl, the same guy that raped the mother raped her daughter. It's like, who are we protecting here? It just kind of beats you up. But anyways, I said when I hit $1 million in sales, I was going to retire. It just so happened $1 million in sales in 2015, so I could retire. Obviously we're way past that now, but that was the milestone that I had at that time.
When did was it always just like a passion project, or when did you decide that, hey, this is a legitimate business, and you start to establish some financial goals, or whatever you call it? But when did it just go from a couple extra bucks or trying to save your team from getting ringworm to, I'm going to go in this head first?
I think it was probably around 2015. We were 10 years old. I didn't pay myself for the first 8 years that I ran the business. I just did it. And then people are like telling me, you need to start paying yourself. And I'm like, well, I have I'm kind of humble. Humble means, I'm sure you've seen. I have a job. I get paid from the police department. I don't really need more money. And they're like, no, you need to pay yourself, just for financial reasons, you got to take that draw. So then I started to pay myself. And then, when you start hitting numbers like 4 million, 5 million, 6 million, things change. Then you're like, yeah, we are kind of legitimate, and it's funny you use that word, because I always say, I want to be a legitimate business. I want, if you're in business for 20 years and you're making millions of dollars, I guess you're a legitimate business. But in my mind, I'm always chasing that, being legitimate. I have the first and only FDA registered antifungal bar soap. There are no other ones. I did that. But now we have FDA registered acne soaps. Bar soaps. People are like, why would you make a bar soap for acne? I'm like, it makes perfect common sense to me to wash your face with an acne bar, right? That thing's killing it right now. But there were other acne bars out there, but people have always questioned me along the way. And it kind of pushes that I want to be legitimate, but I guess I have to say that we are legitimate at this point.
So, like for instance, in our company, now my daughter's a nurse by trade. She went to college, became a nurse. She worked in nursing for a year, but it was through COVID, unfortunately. So her experiences weren't that great, especially at the hospital she was at. Never wrestled, obviously, but girls did wrestle, 27 years ago, even though her dad owned a wrestling club. both my boys wrestled. They both work for me, as well. But we are a family business. I know your son works for you, your wife works with you. Um, were you already established enough where it was your son to come in and be full time, or did you kind of push him away a little bit and say, no, you go do other things? Or how did you kind of get to where you're at with your employees or your family, or feel comfortable enough that they can have a career and it's not just some job that might go away?
Well, when Gus came back from college, he worked for Peanuts. Well, most of my guys worked for Peanuts when I first got here. And I like Charlie, he has a Cornell education. He's graduated from Cornell. You have Gus, he's a UVA graduate. And then I have another guy named Dan, went to a D3 Rio Grande school. These are highly educated people. And I just kept them on the hook with, hey, one day you're going to make the money here. I promise. Just help us grow. Let's grow this together. Great team effort. And, that's how I got those guys. And now they do really good here. One day they'll all own a piece of it. They're all lined up to own a piece of it. I'm going to be gone one day, and they're going to run this company for me. That they'll have half and I'll have half type deal. But I got really good employees. I saw a lot of value in them, and I convinced them, stick it out with me, and it's going to pay. And it's done well for all of them.
So how many employees do you have now?
I have like 13 employees total. I have 3 top tier guys, Charlie, Gus, and Dan, they run the day-to-day operations. Then I have my wife and myself, and then I have, the warehouse people. I have really good shippers, and I have really good guys in the warehouse making stuff.
So years ago, I thought about having, like, I don't know, this mastermind group that we met quarterly, or, something like that with other business owners. Cause I used to work at MBNA America, the credit card company, which had an office in Ohio. And then we got bought by Bank of America. And this is before I went full time with, self-employed. But, when you work for a company, you could call down to human resources, you could call down to tech support, you could call security, that you call anybody else and they would have the answer for you. Or like as a self-employed person, it's time and money. Every single time you make a decision, if it's not the right decision, but you're spending time, you're spending money, and then just to make, change your mind, let's say 6 or 9 or 12 months down the road, you had no experience being an entrepreneur at all. You were a police officer. So kind of walk us through some of the stumbling blocks, or how you learned to get to where you're at today, or what resources you used. Like, how did you, when you didn't have the answer, where did you go?
Well, it's kind of interesting you said that, because I've made a ton of mistakes along the way, right? Luckily, when you're small and you make a mistake, it's not as drastic as when you're big and you make a mistake. And I kind of had like a Frankenstein business. Like, when I needed a form, I created a form on Word, right? Microsoft Word, we created a form. When I needed an invoice, we created an invoice. None of this stuff tied together. For all years, we have all these different things, none of it tied together. In the last 5 years, believe it or not, we have QuickBooks. Our QuickBooks is a monster. We have 100,000 pieces, 100,000 parts that go, every ingredient, everything, every box, every label. It's crazy to tie that all together. So that it was I call it the Frankenstein project, and it all came together. So now it's like one consistent company. But now I pay taxes in, like, I don't know, 17 states. Every county and every state has a different tax thing. So there's companies out there, like, it's called Avalara. It gets programmed into your cart, and they know what the right tax to charge, and you got to pay taxes as well as all those other states and everything. But it was just learning as we grew. But for some reason, I've also had, I don't know where it came from, but I have a very luckily keen business mind. Like I just read on LinkedIn, the year 2024 is a year of profits from the other side, not raising prices, but from saving on the other end. We've done that from day one. I started out, we've had one price raise in 20 years. It was just the other day on wipes. The reason why I'm able to keep profitable is because we find better ways to buy things. We find better ways to make things. We save our customers money by doing our job on the other side. 20 years ago, a $6 bar of soap was a lot of money. Today, these kids are spending $13 on a bar of soap. We're a mid-range product now. We're not like expensive, but we've been able to stay in business and grow by making money on the other end. And that's like the big push in 2024 is like the mantra for 2024. Profit's gonna come. We've been doing that already. We do that a lot of different ways. The way I got my guys, I found guys that I knew had potential. I convinced them to stick it out, and they grew it. I couldn't go out and hire a guy with an Ivy League education. I couldn't do that. My computer tech guy, that guy makes $100,000 a year. You go try to find one of those. I grew mine through the company, and I just did it that way. Maybe blind luck, but that's the way we did it, and that's the way these companies. I read LinkedIn, I read business magazines and stuff, and everything that they're telling me to do, we already did. That's how we got to where we're at. So it's kind of lucky.
With all the increase, especially coming out of COVID, but with all the increases in supplies and just everything across the board, everybody's increasing everywhere. How can you manage to still be the same price? And obviously it doesn't sound like there's any greed in your blood, but still, you have to keep up with the cost of everything else. But how are you able to manage to do that?
So the one thing that went up were the wipes, and it went up $1. And the reason why was because the supply for wipes during COVID was crazy, right? Everybody, the plants that we were making our cloth and got bought out by Clorox, we had to go find new plants to make our cloth. It was crazy, but it was to the point where luckily we were in a good position because we were finally big enough to buy things. So they said, okay, yeah, we'll make your cloths, but you need to buy 100,000 of them. I said, okay, we'll buy 100,000 of them. Yeah. The price comes down when you're buying compared to 10,000 that we normally would buy to 100,000. The price comes down dramatically. Everybody hit us with you got to buy more. Well, we could afford to buy more now, so that's what we're going to do. A lot of companies that were my size that didn't have the financial reserve that we had, they went out of business. They were gone. They couldn't go from 10,000 to 100,000 units where we could. And the very first email that I got when I sat down at this desk was March 20th, 2020. It was the day Ohio shut down for business. And I called my mayor. I'm at this brand new building. I just spent $1.5 million building this building, brand new building. I'm told send all my employees home. I called my mayor. I said, hey, Jim, we have disinfectants and soap that people need. We can't shut down. So he said, okay, hold on a minute. He called the Erie County Health Department, and they actually said, no, they need to stay open. So we worked all through COVID. Everybody else had to shut down and everything. I'm like, thank God I didn't open a gym. I'd be out of business right now. I just up to open a soap company. So it was really lucky time. And I had disinfectants. I had a lot of disinfectants. So everybody's calling for disinfectants. And it really saved us. Believe it or not.
Did you benefit from COVID?
I benefited from COVID. Yes. Now, in a way, a lot of my wrestling teams disappeared and never came back. A lot of clubs folded up and never came back. And that's my bread and butter. I have wholesale accounts with schools or wholesale accounts with wrestling clubs. A lot of them didn't come back, and I had to regain all those wrestling companies after COVID. But I sold a ton of, again, we were small. We were able to pivot. We went from selling soap to wrestling things to disinfectants to anybody who wanted them. And I limited my amount of disinfectants that I could sell to people so I could keep my doors open. I could have sold my entire warehouse in one day, but I wanted to keep my doors open and my people working. So I would only let people buy one at a time. And I drug it out through COVID with the supply chain. I could have, and hindsight, better business would have been sell everything out. My people would have been taken care of by the government, and I would have got stimulus money. I didn't qualify for any stimulus money because I made money during COVID. And we were working 16 hours a day. I could have been sitting at home collecting money, but we felt, listen, we could help people. I could keep people employed. We're going to stay open. And that's what we did.
So I know I stopped by, it might've been 5 years by now. I'd have to look at it, but let's say 5 years ago, I stopped by on my way to Michigan, met you in person for the first time. You were still in that old warehouse. What went into your decision? What factored into your decision to go and build this new facility that you have? And tell us a little bit about that facility, because I know it's not just a fence soap. You have a beautiful wrestling room, all those types of things. But what went into the move from the warehouse to this facility you have now?
A couple of things. I live out here in Vermillion, which is 30 minutes from St. Ed's and 30 minutes from where that old warehouse was. That was right next to St. Ed's, right down the road. So the drive every day got to be, I'm getting older. I don't want to drive. I still drive the St. Ed's half the year, but during the summertime, I don't need to drive that way. So the drive was part of it, but we were outgrowing that place. You saw that place, and we were stacked on top of each other. We had to pull everything out of the warehouse into the hallway to work, and then put everything back every night. We had like one workstation, and it just was becoming impractical. So I just bit the bullet. I said, we're going to build a new building. And I always wanted a wrestling room. So I put the wrestling room on. Well, I live in Lorain County, and it's not necessarily a really prosperous county. So getting financing for a $1.5 million project was a challenge because there was no comps to even pull to build a project. And, they actually cut my building down in size from what I wanted, but they were hung up on the wrestling room. Like, what are you doing? 3,200 square feet of your 12,000 square foot building is going to be a restroom. This doesn't make sense. We're going to cut this. I'm like, we're not cutting the wrestling room. I'm like, it's for marketing, right? I said, it's for marketing. You'll see it's a big marketing thing. So I convinced the bank to leave the wrestling room on there. So we kept, when a year later, they do a short film on their companies that they invest in and how they grew. Where do you think they did that? Where do you think they did that short film? And they didn't do it in my office. They did it in the wrestling room, right? And I convinced them, every single clinic I have is free. No one pays for clinics here. Every single clinic is free. All I do is take a picture of the restroom, post it on social media. It says Defense Soap everywhere in there. So that, that grows. And I've had great guys in here. I've had Colot in here. I've had, Garland in here. I've had Sean Bourmet in here. I had a woman named Sophia McDermott. She's a Brazilian black belt, really high level Brazil, and she did a free self-defense class woman for the women in Vermilion. So that's how we use that room, and that's how we market that room. It's paid off really well for me.
So when you go to get a new construction loan, they look at it in detail like that they want to know exactly what you're building and how you're building and all that they know about your wrestling room.
And they go by square foot, how much money you're going to get out of square foot. And if they can't justify them loaning you, so basically what they do is, if you go out of business, how are they going to dump this building, right? So they have to, and realistically, if you take the wrestling mats out, it's just more warehouse space, basically. It's a separate room, and it's clean, and their whole building's clean, but it's, it's not part of production. But you could easily put racks in there if you wanted to. But yeah, they actually, do appraisal in a building that's not even built yet. And if it doesn't appraise for what they want, they don't give you the money.
So how long have you been in that building now?
Since March of 2020. So 4 years now.
Okay. All right. So I know initially you said you started the company because you had 100 guys with ringworm, but today, 15, 20 years later, like what is your why now? Like, you could probably retire today, you'd have a lot less stress. You could be sitting on your boat, but what is your why now?
Well, my main thing is I got little Max still. He's in the 5th grade. When he hits high school, I'll probably retire from coaching. Like you said, it's 30 plus years of coaching little kids. It's not easy, but I also have to find a replacement. It's not going to be easy to. My program feeds St. Ed's Wrestling. You have to have a good feeder program to feed St. Ed's Wrestling. I can't just walk away from it. So I have to find someone to do that. So there's that. And I still have a little bit of tank in the gas. I don't ever want to be one of those, or gas and tank. I don't want to be one of those guys that should have left, and he's like on borrowed time. I still have a little bit of to give, but I fully watch that gas gauge. And when I start to think that, okay, now I'm the old guy in the room, just taking up space, I'm out of there. Like you said, I could be on my boat. I could be with my wife in the Bahamas. I don't need to be on Lake Erie when it's 25 degrees out during wrestling season, but few more years, that's what I'm doing.
What about specific to Defense Soap though? Like what motivates you every single day now to get up and continue to grow the company when you really don't need to?
Well, I want to get the company to $100 million. Okay. And it sounds like a crazy number, but it's not a crazy number. It's a realistic number that we could get it to. And I guess maybe it's my legacy. We all want part of a legacy. I get offered to sell this company weekly. I'm not selling. We want to grow us to be a 100-year company where my kids can, enjoy it, be a part of it, and have security there. You never know, in the business world, here today, gone tomorrow, so we make conscious efforts to grow and to give us seriously anchored in the business world, and that's what we're doing. I am going to retire, probably next. It's like a 4 to 9 year plan. It's looking like closer to 4. It was 5 to 10. Now it's 4 to 9. It's looking closer to 4 because I have really good people that run this company here. They could run this whole thing without me. I help them with philosophies more now than actual work, if that makes sense.
So, if there's anything too personal or if it's confidential, then you don't feel obligated to answer. But as a fellow business owner, like what's factoring into your decisions, or what have you thought about, versus scaling and selling the company? If there's a private equity company or somebody else that wants to buy you, you could cash out and boom, you're good forever. Versus you've already made mention that, you and your wife will have 50%, but then there's a few other people in the company that you're going to give some equity to because they've been with you along the way. But what goes into that decision to maybe leave the business behind and help other people versus just cashing out?
Well, I think the way we run our business is important. Believe it or not, when we get an email here or a letter here that, hey, your soap helped me. That's a huge thing to us. We post that, we share that. Look what we did today. That's really important. We have to have self-worth, right? There has to be something that as human beings that we do that makes us feel like we're contributing to the greater good, right? Ours just so happens to be, we make a soap that prevents skin infections. And believe me, we're way bigger than wrestling. I say wrestling is about 1/4 of my business now. We're helping old ladies in nursing homes. We're helping that truck driver that's in his truck all weekend long. We're helping that construction worker that has to wear those boots all day long. We're helping people with staph infections that can't use whatever chemicals on the market. We have people with autoimmune deficiencies that depend upon us. That's what gets us coming to work every day. And those are philosophies that I push on to my 3 guys, that we need to maintain this. This is what we are. This is what we do. The reason why I did the 50-50 split was if I were to die, and my wife's quite a bit younger than I am, if I were to die, she can't run this company by herself. So this is set up where she's still financially secure, but we have Charlie, Dan, and Gus running things. They're getting their half. They're going to grow their half. They're not going to want half of a half. They're going to want to grow that. So when they grow that, my wife and kids are, they're protected the whole. And if they sell, well, they got to sell for a lot because they each have 1/3 of a half, right? Yeah. So if they sell for a lot, then she's taken care of. But none of them have the desire to sell. They all want to continue to grow. We're all in the same boat here.
So you mentioned so many other things besides wrestling. Do you have a product development team, or who's thinking outside the box? Because it'd be easy to have tunnel vision and just think wrestling. There was a lot of other things you just mentioned.
Believe it or not, our customers tell us a ton of stuff. Our customers, and that's why you see me at your tournaments, right? I don't need to stand at a table, but you see me standing at a table selling soap. I do that because my customer comes up to me, they talk to me, I get feedback from them. I read the emails, I get the telephone calls, I read the reviews on Amazon where honest people are saying what they're using our soap for. And believe it or not, deodorant of all things is going to be people want a natural deodorant that they feel safe to use. Okay, well, that's a little bit out of our wheelhouse, but we have the manufacturing capability to make a safe deodorant that our customers are begging us for. It's probably going to be a thing in the next couple of years is defense deodorant. People they trust us, they believe in our mission, and they want to use our products. So we can do that. The other things like autoimmune deficiencies and stuff, again, our customers teach us there's something called CIRS, it's chronic inflammation response syndrome. And it's when bodies, and you'll see more and more of this is a new thing that people are coming across. People are sick and tired all the time and wore out. Is because they're affected by black mold and stuff in houses. Well, this doctor that did jujitsu started using defense soap, and we lower that mold level on the skin tremendously. So now we're like big in this CIRS community, and these are people that are really desperate. They're miserable, and we help that people. So we just listen to what people say. That's what we do.
So in those different markets, do I just not see it because it's outside of wrestling? Like, how do you advertise? Like I see Big Ten Network, I see Facebook, I see wrestling. I'm at tournaments, but how do you advertise to all those other channels?
Well, we believe it or not, we run regular commercials on regular TV. We buy remnant commercials on TV. But the way you advertise in that community is you go to their convention and you have a table at their convention and you speak at their convention and you let doctors do research on your product. And then once you become in that medical field, they start publishing papers on you. Then everybody in the medical field knows about you. So we've taken a very guerrilla marketing type, grassroots marketing approach to everything we do. We're at wrestling tournaments. We have a guy in jujitsu. Dan does jujitsu. We go to these medical clinics. You know, I went to Budapest and sat in the UWW's, you know, World Wrestling Medical Conference. And I got called on there to answer something. Good thing I had my stuff together because it was like it was funny because hepatitis B is like a major problem around the world, not necessarily for us, right? And we sell a disinfectant. I had Charlie sitting next to me. Now I spent $5,000 to have Charlie fly to Budapest with me and sit there next to me, right? And he's sitting there, and I lean over to Charlie. I'm like, "Hey, Charlie, how does our product do against hepatitis B?" Charlie pulls out the research. "Hey, we kill it with the 30-second dwell time, whatever." I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's good to know." No shitting with, or no fooling with the 30 seconds. The guy running the thing goes, "We have defense soap here. How does your product do against hepatitis B?" I'm like, "Yeah, we kill it in a 30-second dwell time." And I'm like, turn to Charlie, like, "Hey, good thing I brought you, Charlie." Because I would have been like, "Oh, you know, I had no idea." But then I had to present the defense soap to the medical committee. And we are the one and only product ever in the history of the UWW to be endorsed by their medical committee. But it was because we were there. And we take part in these things. So,
Oh yeah, so I know you mentioned UWW, but you are a partner of United World Wrestling. You said you're the only FDA approved product in this space, correct?
correct. Yeah, there are a lot of knockoffs, and they claim to be. If you look them up, they're not registered with the FDA. Another wrestling one, matter of fact.
So I know, and I won't say the name. I'd have to think about it anyway. I know of at least one other wrestling related company that does what you do, because he comes to some of my tournaments. But is there, aside from that one, is there a really, how is there no competition in your space?
Well, it was funny because I started out and I said, when I hit $1 million in sales, I was retiring from a police department. $1 million to the Sako family is a lot of money. Procter & Gamble doesn't care about $1 million. You know, they'll spend that, you know, researching the cardboard box. You know, they don't care about that. To do what I did and to work for 8 years, not pay myself because there was no money to pay myself. How many people are going to start a company and do that? You know, and now if you're going to come into the market, which we have people try, you better have 15, 20 solid products, because I can mark my bar down and take a loss on my bar to put you out of business, and I will, you know, and make money on other products. That's the way it goes.
So how many SKUs do you have now?
Students?
SKUs, like SKU numbers, products.
Probably at least 30. You know, they're all different products of different sizes. You know, we have 6 different bars. We have 5 different shower gels. We have 2 different wipes. You know, we have the mat cleaners. We have multiple mat cleaners, equipment cleaners. It's just a lot. Yeah. Probably closer to 40, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So in all your trials and tribulations, even if you weren't planning to be a business owner, what advice do you have for somebody out there that's thinking about starting their own company?
Well, number one, you have to have passion, right? None of us, like with your tournaments, if you have passion for your tournament, you're not going to do it, right? You run your tournaments with passion. It's obvious when you're there. You have to have passion. If you have an idea and you think it's going to work, I mean, I had investors tell me I might make $30,000 a year selling defense soap. Financial guys are investors. You might make $30,000 a year. They don't see the $400,000 purchase orders that I get. You know, that's a big mess up on somebody's part there, right? So if you have a gut feeling that something's going to work and you have passion, do it. Just push yourself through it. You'll find ways to do it. You know, I started out with the American Express card that had a $30,000 limit on it. That's how I started my business. But I believed that it was needed, and it was needed. I knew it was needed, and I pushed that, and it worked. So don't let people tell you don't let people put a value on you. If I would have listened to it, if people put a value on me, I'd still be a policeman. You know, I knew it would be something better than that. But again, I didn't start the business to start a business. I started a business to, prevent skin infection in wrestling. It just became a business.
So I know we talked a lot about Defense Open, the business, and you being a police officer, but what else should our listeners know about you? Like, what else did we not talk about, or something that's unique about you, your family, where you're from? What else can we know about Guy Sako?
I don't know if it's unique, but I'm a wrestler. I've been a wrestler my entire life. I'm almost 60 years old now. I still identify as a wrestler. I might not look like a wrestler anymore, but in my mind, if you were to say, what is Guy Sako? I'm not a businessman. I'm not a policeman. I'm a father, a husband, and I'm a wrestler. And that's what I consider myself. I'm very fortunate to have a business that I could help wrestling, and I give to so many scholarship funds. It's awesome that I'm in a really good position. I have a great wrestling club. I'm one of the best wrestling clubs in the country. I took a team to Virginia Beach, nothing but West Shore kids. We're in the gold pool, elementary gold pool. I mean, we got killed in the gold pool, obviously, but we have a pretty good program. When you're just a group of kids that practices day in, day out, and you end up in the gold pool at Virginia Beach, you're doing something right. So I'm proud of my wrestling. I'm proud that I feed St. Ed's. I'm proud of the relationships I have with my coaches and the kids over the years. I mean, I'll have Division I college coaches call me and ask me about a kid that I coached when he was 5 years old. That makes it all worthwhile to me,
So from a coach, I know you're in a tough part of the country there in Ohio for wrestling, but as a coach now versus 10, 20, 30 years ago, and you still have so much success, but what's it like, with parents or, just all the changes? I mean, does everybody buy into your product, or, is it, they see your success, or how do you continue to maintain that with how much the world has changed?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because we just, every morning before defense, we have an hour wrestling meeting, because Charlie's my assistant coach. The guy I live with in the morning is one of my assistant coaches. So we have a wrestling meeting every hour. And that's the topic, is like, parents have gotten softer, kids have gotten softer. There's so many more distractions for kids. We're still, not to compare us to Iowa, but Iowa's still doing things the old fashioned way, and they need to adjust, right? They need to adapt if they want to compete with the Penn States. We're starting. Are we in Iowa? Do we need to start adjusting to, keep these kids on board with what we're doing? Because it's not working for Iowa, so maybe it's not going to work for us, right? Yeah. So it's a conversation. It's a tough one that we have every morning. We're very old school. Be quiet, put your head down, and get to work, and it's done really well for us. Luckily, we're dealing with young kids that want to be wrestlers. Maybe we have an advantage there, but man, the world is changing and wrestling's changing.
So are a lot of your parents, though, from that area, and they're just hardcore wrestling people, so it's easy, or do you have to talk to them and kind of manage them or show them the ropes, or are they buying into your product, or are they part of this woke, canceled, society that we have now, or do they just walk away and they don't come back?
I have different layers, and I have my core guys. We practice 5 days a week, youth wrestling, and I probably, out of my club of 100 kids, probably 40 of those kids are there diehard every single day. Then I got another group that comes 2 to 3 days a week. They bounce from club to club. And then I got kids that, they come and go. They're newbies. They're wrestling not for them. They like wrestling. They got to leave wrestling practice, go to a basketball game. And who would ever tell the wrestling coach that? But that's what the kid told me this year, right? So, I mean, we have that different layer. That 40 kids, though, that's what I put my heart and soul into. They're there every day. They believe in me. They believe in our system. There's a reason why St. Ed's has 117 individual state champions. And the last 40 of them came from my guys. I'm proud of that. And those are the next 40 will be on that wall there. But yeah, it's a challenge. And how do you adapt to that without compromising your beliefs and your integrity? That's a challenge.
Yeah. You mentioned you're a wrestler, and I started wrestling in 7th grade. I started wrestling because at our school you had to play a sport to count as your gym class. So I finally got a chance to play football. I tried wrestling, and I had always played baseball since I was 7 years old. But then I wrestled through high school, and I didn't go to college at all. But I'm a lifelong coach. So I became a student of the sport, and I've coached for 20 years. But I truly believe it's almost like the military, right? Like I still identify as a wrestler. If you're a wrestler, like you're part of our network. Matter of fact, I had two contractors come into my office yesterday, and one wasn't a wrestler, and the other one was. And at the end of the day, if it boils down to it and everything's kind of apples to apples, I'm 100% going with the wrestling guy to support him. And that's kind of where I'm at now. Like I said, man, why didn't I start really focusing on tournaments 10 years earlier? But I was still coaching and I was still building my network. So and that's kind of how I came up with the name, the Tyrant Network. I just kept Tyrant because of our wrestling program, but to have that familiarity. But the network is really what we built through our brotherhood and how we can help each other and how we can grow. And as much as you said, you mentioned Iowa, Penn State, but no matter who you are, or your biggest competition in Ohio, across from St. Ed's, at the end of the day, we're all still family and we're all part of, one group. And, as fierce as we are with each other, we're still there to help each other. And I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, well, our wrestlers always get first priority. Like my guys that have gone out into the world, we claim them forever. If they're the president of the United States, I'm gonna say he was a West Shore wrestler. I think we all take pride in that, right? That's what, like I said, it's the self-worth that we have. You want to know that you contribute to society, and you did it through your tournaments and your coaching. We love being partners with you because you have a message. Your message is good, and your message, you talk about your suicide message, that moves a lot of people. We see the way you walk around in tournaments. You check with people and make sure they're comfortable. You make sure that they're happy with the way the tournament's going. I mean, you very easily could just go sit in the back and just, I'll tell you what, I was in Virginia Beach this year. I had a question. I went upstairs. They didn't know who I was. And I asked the guy the question. He looked at me and goes, I don't got time for you. And he turned back around. I'm thinking, you just cost yourself a chunk of money there, buddy. But, that's what he honestly said. He just saw as a customer,
Yeah. But even if you're just a regular customer, but that's where, like I say, and I don't mean anything negative towards these guys, but when I was a coach, let's say when I was going to Ohio Tournament Champions, when I was going to Tulsa Nationals, when I was going all over the country coaching and taking all my guys with me, I say, like, internally to, our staff, I said, I don't ever recall seeing a tournament director or most of their staff out on the floor and being present and engaged with everybody. And I just truly enjoy building relationships and developing those relationships with people. And I like meeting people. And, coming back to business, I own a sportswear company, you own Defense Soap. It's only going to help you. When you need something or you want something, or you want to cross market, it's only going to help you. But I think you and we do it for all the right reasons, but then, we can reap the rewards of that. So, but
I've also caught you playing football with the kids at the tournaments. So
yeah,
I see
that's probably the one time I let them throw a ball there, because I usually take it away. But
yeah.
well, is there, how can, we're just starting this podcast, but eventually there's gonna be thousands of people listening to it. But anybody that's listening, that's out there, how can we help Defense Soap? How can the Tyrant Network help Defense Soap? Is it just buying your product? Is it, like, what can we do to help grow your company?
Well, I think we're already doing it. I mean, we partner with you for a reason, again, because we believe that you believe in what you're doing. So we want good, solid partners. You're a good, solid partner. I mean, you're doing your job. You mentioned us at your tournaments. You have us on the table. When we send out wipes for the tables, they're always out there. That's all we can ask for. We have to do the rest ourselves, right? It's up to us to make sure that we're putting the good products out there, make sure that we have good customer service. That's on me. You guys are doing your share. We partnered with you for that reason. We know you would do that.
So I thought about you because I heard, so in your, however long you guys have been around, 15 years, 20 years, but you've only had like 4 people ever where you've had to give their money back, but no questions asked. You just give them a refund if they're not happy. You want them to be happy, so here's your money if you're not happy with our product.
We have a 100% money back guarantee. If our product doesn't work for you, we're going to give you your money back, but that never happens. And if you go on Amazon and we're selling them, number one, fungal infections are really hard to deal with. We all know that, right? So if you look at our medicated bar soap on Amazon, it's 4.6 star review as a medicated product. You know how many customers are probably struggling with a difficult fungal infection that we were able to help? So that it's not like we're selling a really cool t-shirt where, hey, I really like this, I'm going to get it. If our product doesn't work, we're not getting the review. We're not getting that positive review. We're a 4.6 out of 5 stars on a medicated product on Amazon. Pretty hard to beat that.
So what ideas do you have? Obviously, we sell the wipes at our tournament at the gear booth, but then we also put the wipes out at all the sport tables for the athletes to wipe down. You have any ideas on how to keep those canisters from walking away off the score tables? We thought about taping them to the tripod, but do you have anything out there or no?
Just don't put them out when there's nobody sitting at the table. I get that at a lot of tournaments where like we need more wipes. We put them out the night before and they're all gone. I'm like, well, yeah, what were you thinking? It was funny. I had somebody broke into a high school locker and he had a iPod or something in there. I don't remember what it was, but they didn't steal that. They stole his defense wipes. They thought they'd write me a story. Someone broke in my locker and stole my wipes. It was funny. I don't buy buckets.
Yeah, well, that might be a better option, but I wouldn't put it past those people. You'd be surprised, or you probably wouldn't be surprised. But we're trying to come up with like almost like when you walk into a bathroom and there's the tissue there, but it's stuck up in a canister. You can only pull one at a time. Or we talked about coming out with something that can wrap around the score clock tripod so they can't just freely take it. But we'll come up with something, and when we do, we'll patent it and we'll sell it together to all your other tournament directors. But Guy, listen, congratulations on all your success. Personally and professionally, I say personally, it's been great getting to know you a little bit better over the years. Professionally, I appreciate you doing business with us and just letting some stranger walk in your door years ago. But we wish you nothing but the best. Anything in closing, or have we touched on everything?
No, I appreciate what you do for us. I appreciate what you do for the kids. You have fun tournaments. I like your pitbull approach to the tournaments. I mean, you're gonna have a tournament no matter what. I like that during COVID. I remember, and it's good. I'm glad that we have guys like you in wrestling that didn't cower to that, and you guys, because of that, you're successful. So I appreciate that. And always defend what you built, right?
I'll tell you what's crazy, because I don't really think about things, and you probably don't until somebody actually says something to you. I was running Tyrant duels this year at Franklin and Marshall College, but on Friday they had the F&M Open. So we're just in there, my staff and I are in there, and we're starting to change over from the F&M Open, the college tournament, over to our youth event. But 2 parents came up to me that their kids are current college wrestlers. And one, they recognized me / remember me, which shocked me in the first place. But they came up and thanked me for running during COVID and giving their kids opportunities because everything else was taken away, and how it helped. Like, you just don't realize the impact that you're making. We just do it for all the right reasons. But when people share their stories with you, it's really humbling.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome, isn't it? Makes you feel good.
So I'll let the cat out of the bag and then we'll close out. So you mentioned St. Ed's. We are going to run a high school national duels sanctioned in-season event. I just finalized everything last week. So to get started, at least for next year, it's going to be the first weekend of January. It is going to be in Pennsylvania, but we're inviting the top 24 teams in the country. If you accept, then you're in. If you decline, then we'll go to the 25th or the 26th ranked team. But we're gonna, instead of all that mythical national champion stuff that's going on in the past with Blair Academy or Wyoming Center or St. Ed's, now they can come in and battle it out. So maybe you can help me get St. Ed's there. We'd love to have them. And but we're gonna have the best of the best going at it, and we're really looking forward to it. To kind of put a feather in our cap, but it'll be our first sanctioned event that we're running, aside from the Maryland State Championship that we do, but that we operated for them. But so we're looking forward to that. Hopefully we can grab your guys, and if anybody else you can think of, we'll get them in there.
I'll absolutely pass it up the line. Do you have a flyer on it yet for these guys, or?
I don't have anything cool yet, but I had the dates and all the critical information that I can email to you. But I'll get a flyer done up this week.
I don't need a flyer, just give me, because they're going to start their schedule soon.
Yeah, that's why I know I started calling people last night, but they're focused on national preps or states. But I know that they're doing their schedule ahead of time and they're locked in for a year or two. But I'll send the information to you.
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely get it to them.
All right, guys, Scotty, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.
Yep. Good luck on the podcast.
Thank you.